Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage Ian White.
Hey guys, so this is a session on personalization and the Internet of Things. And so all day, you've heard from us, you've heard us speaking, you've heard from some customers speaking. This is really a chance to hear from you. This is an interactive discussion. What I've got here is this very fancy catch box, which is the soft microphone that we can toss around. We've also got live polls going. So if I grab my clicker here, if you pull up the LiveCube app web URL, lift.livecubeapp.com right now, and you hit schedule and you hit join conversation on this event, then some polls are going to come up. And you'll be able to answer the polls, and we can look at the results in real time, and we can have a discussion around them. Sound good? Yeah, all right. So, and also, some of the polls are going to be questions to respond to, open-ended. If you would like this catch box, raise your hand, and I will throw this catch box really hard at your face. No, I will toss this catch box to you, and what we can do is just pass it around from audience member to audience member, and let's just have a discussion. So the Internet of Things. There's a massive growth in devices, independent devices that are collecting more data about our physical world than we've ever seen before. 90% of data that exists today did not exist 2 years ago. The growth in the data that is being collected and the capabilities of technology to collect that data are accelerating. And with the growth of the connected home, the uses in industrial and infrastructure applications, use in the city and municipal facilities, there's going to be even more and more data produced every day. And so what I'd really like to discuss with you guys is, how are you thinking about the Internet of Things in your own businesses, in your own digital marketing strategies? Is it just a buzzword? Is it just hype right now? Or does it drive real value and strategies for your business? So, first question. How many of us know what the concept Internet of Things is? And so the answers are yes, no, or not sure. So fire up the poll. And we have real-time results from 14 people. And it looks like no is leading by a nose. We've got 19 seconds left. Keep those results coming in. This is the first time I've seen this poll app. It's super exciting. And so with 5 seconds to go, we're pretty evenly split. And no has it. So a plurality of people here do not know what the concept Internet of Things is, right? So it is a ill-defined concept, I think, but what I think it means is the growth of connected devices that are out there in our daily lives, in basically all kinds of applications. So, it could be the Nest vision of the connected home. Could be mesh networks that talk to each other, devices that can build local networks of information and data. And all of this is fueled by the proliferation of mobile devices. And mobile devices can collect data on their own with location, and they can also be used as the remotes or controllers for these simpler devices. And I didn't mention the beacons, the iBeacons, which bring a new set of possibilities for in-store personalization, as well as any kind of location-based event. So if you walk into a store right now that has an iBeacon, and if you have a mobile app that that mobile app which matches that beacon, then that app can actually fire up and take action. And this is something that retailers are deploying right now on massive, massive scale. So let's go to a more open-ended question. What do you guys personally think is the potential of these devices, of these new technologies? Thoughts? Is there a hand in the back from? This is the question. What do you guys think? What do you personally believe about the potential of connected devices? It's extraordinary. You want to take the mic? Let's do it. Is the mic on? I broke it. Already, new technologies always have challenges.
It's definitely in the early stages, but it's going to be extraordinary.
Yeah. And why do we think it's going to be extraordinary? What can the potential of connected devices do for our daily lives? I mean, for me, I feel like if you look at the way mobile has fundamentally changed our daily lives, it's because it takes the digital experience into our daily lives, into the real world, into our everyday interactions. We all carry with us a supercomputer of information that we have available to us at any time. And if we can have our physical spaces be aware of our context, of what, of who is where, it can make the potential of an in-store experience be fundamentally different, right? Thoughts on that?
I was just going to say it makes every, it kind of makes every product a marketing tool, you know, a tool through which you can have a message. I mean, as a company, I mean, every time Siri speaks, it's like something for Apple. Now, that's not always positive, but these days, but it used to be very positive. So that's kind of a whole different way that companies enter your home, because you don't think of your refrigerator as being a certain type, but if it started interacting with you more, maybe you would, you know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Other thoughts on the potential of these technologies? Okay. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
I guess my question about it is, I think the potential is unlimited, but what do you think about how all of the different sort of products, like are they going to play nice with each other? Is my Nest going to know that the room that holds my 3D printer needs to be cooler so that the product doesn't melt for when I send it a blueprint of something I want from my Google Glass? Like, is it, how much of the, I guess, is it going to be able to be shared like that, or are you going to be siloed off into different products, and how well does it connect together?
Right, I mean, that's a fundamental question, is where is the data? Is the data siloed among different brands? Also, does the data actually live in the devices, or are the devices, you know, connect with a mesh network to each other? Or is it a cloud model where the intelligence sits in the cloud and you have basically, you know, you can reduce the size of that hardware and the cost of firmware and software updates by having the devices be fairly dumb, and they talk to the cloud, right? But yeah, I mean, are you going to have standards for interoperability, or is it a winner-take-all space, right? Where, you know, a Google starts to define, you know, what the parameters for all of these devices look like. Let's go to the next question. Are you right now personally having active conversations in your company about what this means for your business? Is this a poll question, or is this open-ended? I think this is open-ended. So, quick show of hands, who is having active conversations right now about what it means for your business? Let's have one of them take the mic. Who wants to talk about that?
I think you mentioned it before. It's the being able to connect online with offline is the big thing that we're discussing internally, and I think that's a reality right now. Being able to we're kind of really at the stage evolution of technology right now where you can identify that individual as they come in to the store and connecting how they've engaged with your brand online and through other digital channels, and then, what's the inventory in that store? Have they purchased in that store before? What's the inventory that you're how does that connect with their behavior online? Like, I think that's a big piece that's relevant for a lot of people in the room, and we spend a lot of time on it.
Somebody else who's having conversations at their company about the Internet of Things?
I think for us being cable network, it's been a big focus, just as you have consumers who sit predictably in front of their couches and watch linear television in a predictable way, and now the Internet of Things makes content distribution through Netflix and Amazon a totally different world. You can be talking to consumers who are sitting on a park bench watching our content, or commuting to work. So I think for us, it's how do you refocus your content strategy to be as applicable to any consumer regardless of where they are in that process?
The biggest difference, it seems to me, with some of these content consumption strategies for mobile is context becomes really, really significant, right? Because there's sort of an assumption when we think about digital content and the way it's consumed that it is, right? It's in the living room, or it's on the desktop computer. But when consumption of content can happen anywhere in the real world and in any space, how do you make sure that content is right for that particular place and time? Other folks.
Hi, Sandy Elder from Newsday. We're also having what's the length of a story that we're serving by device? So if you're on an iPhone, you might get a shorter story served to you where you'll be able to send it to yourself, and when you get to the office, you can actually click on the full version of the story. So that's some of the stuff we're doing.
Anybody else?
Anyone else? Doesn't somebody want to catch this? Let's do a really ambitious one. Somebody all the way down there? Okay. What about back there? That would be intense. All right. There we go.
We got one right there.
It's really just another question. Has anyone started to think about the roles of the small devices like iWatch, and called iWatch, but the Apple Watch, and the other smaller devices, and how you can integrate that into your either customer acquisition or purchasing or customer communication plans?
Anybody developing an iWatch strategy? Yeah, you want to talk about that? Anything you can share? Fair enough.
Danny?
Hey there. So I think wearables are a really interesting opportunity in two spaces. So if you look at customer acquisition and identifying location of the user, and motion and context, where people are moving faster or slower and where they are, and then their consumption habits on their devices at that point in time. I'm not sure what it says, but it says something interesting, what they're doing, their energy, and what content they're consuming. Because a gyroscope on your wrist explains your energy. It shows how you're moving, how fast. And then the content you're consuming at that point in time makes a connection. So that could be kind of interesting from a content perspective. The other side is industrial. When you start to look at wearables in an industrial idea, and you're trying to develop just-in-time systems where you do have teams on the warehouse floor, and you're trying to increase efficiency fully, having something on your face to know where something is, or where something is coming in, or reading barcodes is so much better than having something on your wrist to hold you back. So I think both areas could be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we often think about, the consumer applications because, that's the iWatch is sexy and we think about it, we see those things in our daily lives. But actually, the projections for the number of connected devices is actually, I believe, highest on industrial applications specifically. So, next question, next topic. How do you feel your company should enter into the Internet of Things? Via partnerships, new products, third-party data, other, or you're just not sure yet? Live poll. Fire up the app. So we got 18 seconds for the poll. Partnerships, other, not sure. And partnerships looks like it's running away with it, although not sure is a strong second. So partnerships or not sure. And that's natural, I think, for a new technology, right? Is people are evaluating what it means or even what the strategy is. And partnerships, someone who focuses in this space, can we partner with them and, hopefully they've figured out some of the details and we can integrate it. But integration can become a challenge if your data model is not really set up to capture or use this or take advantage of this type of data or these types of technologies.
Yeah. Can we expand upon this?
Yeah.
If somebody did partnerships or not sure, can you expand upon your answer and
Yeah.
why? Anybody answered partnerships?
Who said partnerships?
Or not sure? Why aren't you sure? Anyone want to take a stab at that? Nope. All right, keep it moving.
All right, we'll move on. So now let's talk about, some of you are from e-commerce, some of you are media companies. Let's talk about the challenges and opportunities in each of those spaces. So specific to those industries, those verticals, are there folks who want to speak up about challenges, opportunities that are specific to your space?
All right, we got one in the back.
Got one in the back.
Hi, so I used to work for J.Crew, but currently I work for Condé Nast, which owns all the premium magazines and all the digital properties. And so I run all the marketing for all of our digital deals. So one of the biggest challenges that I'm currently experiencing is, let me just kind of add in the context. So our content, our videos are actually available through Roku, and we're developing an Xbox capability as well. So we have partnerships with those OTT partners. So one of the biggest challenges for us is Roku as a device is extremely centric. And so when I'm going after more of a female audience for some of my brands, such as Vogue or Glamour, it's more challenging because the adoption is not there yet for females. So that's one really real problem that I'm experiencing. And then an opportunity, obviously, is I'm seeing my viewership continuously growing on a month-to-month basis. And because of the fact that the user base of Roku is extremely tech-savvy, a lot of content that we're producing for Wire or for New Yorker are being picked up at a higher pace. So lots of opportunities in terms of really connecting the consumer on these devices to hyper engage the content that we're putting out there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if the classic crossing the chasm model, we're still very much at the early adopter stage rather than the early majority stage with a lot of these devices, and some of these devices were not even at early adopter yet. So that's a really interesting point about the types and compositions of those audiences who consume those devices. Do other folks have other challenges?
All right.
Well, I sell ebooks, so I'm kind of already living in the Internet of Things for a few years now. And I think the challenge is this issue of partnerships. Who are you going to let sell your product? Are you going to sell direct? We all either have a Kindle or review it on our smartphones or tablets or whatever, and we're using this going with us everywhere, being available anywhere at any time. And the channels they begin to overwhelm the actual product, and people begin to control their own product. So I think, as other kinds of products get into this, I think, ebooks have tried to learn from what happened to the music industry, and I think everybody else is going to have to try to learn from what's happened to the industry now. And it makes me pretty nervous, actually. Like, if everything is just turn into 3D printed or Wi-Fi'd stuff, what's going to happen? So I'm feeling fairly dystopian, I have to say, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because these devices, they're a physical channel. So there's the whole manufacturing, the people who basically control the devices essentially have control over that channel. And what we're used to in the digital channel and software is controlling our own channel, right? So that's an interesting point.
Okay, this might be intense, so be careful, you two.
This is more of a general issue that I see, and it seems to be topical as well. But what about privacy issues with collecting all of this data, and the problem that, even if you put as many terms and conditions in acquiring data as you want, people aren't all going to do that, and there's a high risk of people objecting to that amount of data. And we mentioned in previous presentations about freaking the consumer out with too much personalization. So that's, there's responsibility there, but just in owning that data, how do we see a solution to that on the long term?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we have actually a later slide about privacy, but maybe we should just jump into it now, because I think it's a really rich topic, right? Because people have different expectations of privacy. Probably the expectations of privacy are probably changing all the time, but certainly in physical spaces, that changes the nature of the type of data that is being collected. If you're a store that has beacons, what type of signage is appropriate? What type of opt-out and what type of control do consumers want to have on their personal data, their location data? I mean, there's so many different issues relating to this. There's an infinity of issues to discuss. I wonder, what do you guys think about privacy in the era of mobile connected devices everywhere?
Tiger?
I don't know. I just think it's going to get really crazy when it's more about implanted devices and how that relates to all this. I mean, right now it's like you can throw your watch into the ocean, or you can turn off your device or smash it. But once you start to take that next step and communicate to whatever by just maybe thinking it or getting messages that way, it takes it to the next level. So.
Yeah, I mean, implanted devices start to get really interesting on all kinds of levels. I mean, that's a little further away, but maybe not so far.
I think my favorite example that's not even that Internet of Things is there's a famous story about Target finding out that a man's daughter was pregnant before he did, basically, which isn't that strange, but they started sending marketing materials about babies. And he runs into the Target and yells at the manager about that. It's in the New York Times if you want to look it up. It actually happened. I think that's where things start to become a problem. I forget her name, but there was another reporter who spent a year trying to be traceless on the internet, and the FBI actually came to her door because they thought she was trying to hide something nefarious. So you start kind of thinking about those angles, and even as a marketer myself, I come from the music industry, so how do we get music to people at the appropriate time in the appropriate place, and when does that start becoming creepy? I think that's always a concern.
Yeah. You could catch?
I mean, this is a personal thought, but I feel like there has to be, generally with most people, a recognition that privacy is really a fallacy. I mean, you may clear your cookies at the end of the day, but Google still knows where you went, and it's not erased from that. So I feel like privacy becomes more of a marketing play than an actual reality. You want to give customers a sense of security. You can, and sadly, I think where we're more just trying to leverage the perception to actually give people control over the data that we store.
Yeah, I mean, it's a provocative point, right? Like, data is everywhere, right? I mean, if I take an action, if I make a statement right now, I don't get to just erase it and say I didn't make it. But for some reason, we do have a sort of a practice or an assumption that consumers can remove data, can remove things that have happened. It's interesting because it's really a social question more than a technical question. Is what is the expectation of privacy, and what feels creepy, what feels over the line, and it's evolving.
It almost seems like privacy is from each other instead of from the companies. Like, everybody freaked out when Amazon did that thing where they were telling everybody what they bought for gift. Was that like 5 years ago? That was a few years ago now. And everybody freaks out when you can accidentally see people's Netflix viewing history, or you can accidentally get pieces of mail from Target to your house. But they don't freak out when Target knows that you're pregnant. They don't freak out when Amazon knows what you were looking at. They don't freak out when we send everybody very highly targeted emails about specifically what kind of shirts they like to wear. So I feel like the definition of privacy is almost we need to change if we're going to protect it, which is very difficult.
I'm going through him again. You ready?
Just because I play kick.
In response to that, and in response to what you said, I agree that, the idea of privacy is a total fallacy for sure. I think, even if we activate location services for Foursquare, I'm still going to want to use Google Maps, and so someone's going to know where I am at all times anyway. But that's why I think that Sailthru or another company, it's really important to instill trust in the consumer that you're not going to misuse that data, like disclosing it to the end, even though I haven't killed anyone, but that's a big issue, and I feel like breeding that sense of trust in consumers is going to be key.
No, just saying that, you want to instill a sense of trust, but we also want to monetize it. So we want to limit the amount of upfront that we reach out to people and say, you could trust us with your data, we'll never do anything. We will mine, we'll sell it, and we will recommend your shirts based on it. So we won't tell that your husband, your wife, that you're doing this or you're Googling that, but so it's really how we convey that trust. It's not that we want to put up walls. I think it's that we want people to get the experience, and I think it's when they get the wonky experience or bad experience or something like that, then they lose trust. But if you manage it properly and you're always displaying or recommending product that the person really wants, then they trust it. So it's sort of how it's the way that you deliver the experience that's much more important than the language in the footer that says this is our privacy policy. I mean, that's my take, but
yeah, consumers want personalization. It's not just demonstrated in their actions. It's, if you ask them, would you rather get something that you want, that you asked for, that that fits your needs and preferences? You'd rather get that than get the same thing as everyone else. But it's really, really important that that personalization work well, because when it's wrong, it feels really, really wrong. Other thoughts on this?
There's a lot of you back here. I don't want to nail anyone.
Hi, so I think one thing that especially affects e-commerce companies is the fact that we can hold so much data and risk management that you're going to have to face all that customer data, especially in this day and age when there are a lot of, in terms of like security, companies have to think about how to secure that customer information and how other hack into it, and then how it's not only bad for your customer, but bad for PR. Customers will completely lose trust in you if something like that happens. It's almost thinking about a whole nother department that you have to hire to make sure that that is secure and that you're managing your risk correctly.
And many companies do have chief privacy officers. It's a growing role. It's very common. And bringing it back to the Internet of Things, there's a general topic on privacy and personalization and data security, but all those issues become compounded with the sensitivity of location data, right? And the sensitivity of personal data. So it's a very interesting topic. Let's see what the next poll question is. So where do you think the highest volume of data will come from in the next 3 years? Choices: connected household, government and infrastructure, wearables, enterprises, mobile devices. We're not sure. Next 3 years through 2017. Fire up the web app, and we've got to vote for enterprises so far. Wearables, mobile devices, government infrastructure. 10 more seconds. And mobile devices is shooting up, coming back down. And scene. All right. Mobile devices is the plurality. That's the, I think over the next 3 years, that makes a lot of sense. Right? We have a massive amount of mobile devices deployed already. What do folks who thought one of these options think? You want to raise your hand?
Are you a good catch?
Oh, careful. Whoa. You okay?
Save the camera before himself.
All right. So there's an example of a connected device and how they can backfire horribly. I actually don't think that's connected to the internet. Is it?
Yeah. I think it's going to be wearables, actually, because wearables are going to be talking to everything. They're going to be talking to your mobile device. They're going to be talking to your connected car, connected household. Your car is going to be talking to the government infrastructure, and everything is going to kind of live in yourself, which is then your wearables.
So you think when the Apple Watch launches, it's going to be huge? No.
Not as much as you think, but it's Internet of Things, the data is going to be there, and it's not just the iWatch. You already have other connected devices that are there, and I think that that's just going to grow. And those are going to be connected with your mobile devices. You will be having kind of the share of knowledge throughout all of that.
Totally.
I think with the watch, what will take off the most is fitness data and nutrition data. I know my grandpa is the most tech-savvy person in my family, and he pre-ordered one already, and he's most excited to use it when he goes running, so that all his, the courses he runs, how fast he's running, et cetera, is captured. And he can also then enter his nutritional information and have all of that there. And I think also with Google Glass, if that takes off, then a lot more in that as well. And a contact lens someday, who knows? There's a lot.
We have Google Glass in the hall if you want to play with one, by the way.
I also picked wearables, though I think mobile devices is close second for me. But I mean, I have a Fitbit, and I just got an email like yesterday. I'm trying to look it up to remember exactly what it said, but I think they just launched a new Fitbit that's going to track like my heart rate and I don't know how much I breathe in a day or whatever. There's a lot of things that are going to be tracked that I can't buy the Fitbit and say no, only track this, but it's going to just, whether I want it or not, track everything. And that's
I had a Jawbone, but I left it in a hotel room in London, and I didn't get a new one. Yeah.
Anybody else? All right. Next one.
All right, on to the next question for you all. So, the Internet of Things and personalization. What are some of the ways that you think that the Internet of Things can be used for personalization, and what are some of the ways that you're thinking about personalizing experiences and interactions across devices? What are you thinking about today, and what are you thinking about in the future?
More coffee? I know, it's a long day.
Is cross-device personalization something that comes up in your strategy right now? Or, you know, is mobile right now, it's really just getting the app working and the messages out and not thinking about that second step of personalization?
I'll start with you.
So I can talk about this a little bit. I work for a company that teaches people how to code online, and so for us, people that are learning in schools are using usually a tablet, and people when those kids or those students or whoever go back home, they're using like a laptop or a computer. So for us, it's super helpful to know whether or not we should be, how long that interaction is going to be while they're in school. It's usually much longer than while they're at home. What form we should be showing people content in and how much we should be showing them. So tablets, very different interactions than what you can read and learn at home. So understanding that and syncing between all these devices is also really tough for us because one is usually a mobile app, like a native mobile app, like on an iPhone or an Android device that has to sync a web store somewhere that then changes the experience for when they go home. So I'd say it's something we're thinking about, and it's really tough. Personalization that was, you have to pick a few variables you care about and work really hard to create consistent experience across your devices.
Yeah, I mean, you always want that experience to be seamless, right? I mean, and that's a big part of the challenge. And it's also in these different device contexts, right? Like people are using the iPhone app maybe in a different way than they'd be using the tablet. So it's a real challenge. You have to think about each channel.
Anybody else?
Somebody else?
Yeah.
I work for Sherman's Travel. We publish travel deals, and many of our users see those deals in marketing emails from Sailthru on their mobile device, but statistically, more people are more likely to book on desktop or tablets. So finding a way to research the deal that they click on in tablet or desktop after they saw it on their phone is something worth thinking about.
Yeah, and that's a really common pattern. We see that across everywhere. People browse stuff on their phones, they look at stuff on their phones, but they don't convert on their phones, broadly speaking. They convert on tablet and desktop. And it'll be interesting to see if things like Apple Pay start to change that equation by making it more frictionless to convert on the phone. But it may just be that the screen size is such where you're just always going to want a bigger screen for that. Anybody else thoughts on personalization across devices? Let's go on to the next question, which is, so what do you think the timeline looks like for consumer brands to get true personalization, that true cross-device, unified, seamless personalization, individual experience? What does this look like? Is it now? Is it happening now? Is it 2 or 3 years? I'm not sure why there isn't an option for 1 year, but I guess if it's 1 year, you can vote for now. Or 4 or more, or not sure. Now, 2, 3 years out, 4 more years, or not sure. Real-time poll. Some people are saying now, some are saying 2 or 3 years. Looks like now in 2 or 3 years. Nobody's not sure, nobody's 4 more years. 2 or 3 years is 2 or 3 years. All right, 2 or 3 years is the is what most people think. So those of you who think it's 2 or 3 years out or now, defend your choice.
Yeah. You good catch? All right.
I think it's now for types of apps or brands that you actually want to interact with. So if you're signing up and you want to give them your preferences, your interests, I think you can have that high level of individualization right now. Maybe 2 to 3 years is something where you don't have that option. You know, you'll get a different experience in the person next to you because that's how creepy we are now. And it is Big Brother. I think someone mentioned earlier it's that fine line between big data and Big Brother, and I think that's very true. I don't think we'll have the option to not have a Big Brother in 2 to 3 years, maybe.
Other thoughts on timeline?
There we go, in the back. I think one of the things that we worry about is that it's almost too late because the industry is moving so fast and we don't have the time to create personalized content for each individual device. So it's almost like you have to make these really rash decisions, you know, for brick and mortar or for all of the devices and potentially wearables and how they fit into your business because the timeline is moving so fast. I feel like Big Brother isn't even an issue anymore because everybody's looking for that personal experience on their device, and just finding the right time and the relevant way to do it is a constant struggle for us.
Yeah, I mean, resources are always an issue everywhere. Anybody else on timeline?
Okay, next up.
All right. Next up. All right, so we talked about privacy a little bit and trust a little bit, but the question is, how do you think you can use Internet of Things data to personalize without impacting consumer trust? You talked about some of the trade-offs there. What do you think? How can we do it?
Honestly, I think making it that it's a robot doing it and not a person. I think most people won't care if a machine's deciding what to send them and nobody's trawling through that information. So if you make that as an explicit part of marketing, that you're part of the messaging for a company, there's not some dude with red hair and a beard who's looking through your data, seeing that you need, you know, pickles and eggs or whatever. Like, most people will probably be okay as long as that's up front.
I mean, it's an interesting point because remember when Gmail started doing personalized ads based on email content, people were like, "Oh my God, Google's reading our emails," you know. But after the message was out that it was no one at Google is reading your emails, it's just robots doing semantic analysis. Nobody seemed to really be bothered by that.
Can I ask a question off of this? I'm just curious, do you think your consumers are expecting your brands to be at the level of personalization now? Like, is this an expectation that you're personalizing across devices, or is it just, or you think that they're not there yet? Anybody have sort of an opinion on that? Is it an expectation? Needed more coffee? No? Okay, cool. Next one.
Other thoughts on trust?
I think it also has to do with phrasing. Like if you send somebody an email that says like, "Hey, we see you're at the mall. Wouldn't you like to come by our stall and buy an Orange Julius?" Like that's creepy. But if you say like, Orange Julius, it's so delicious," like that's somehow less creepy was the exact same message. I don't know. I've never had an Orange Julius in my life. I don't know why I just said that. I've heard they're delicious. The marketing is working. but like I think that'll be the light touch that gets people to not be scared. And I totally agree with you about making it not like a person. Even fake some emails now, even if I like specifically select a segment, I'll make it sound like a robot sent it, so it's less creepy.
Someone in the back there.
Catch.
So I think it's also going back to the question we asked before, partnerships and how somebody's going to enter into the IoT. And I think if a lot of people believe that partnerships is an entry point, that it also comes down to that kind of rabbit hole that consumers have to go through, privacy policies, clicking on one and finding embedded links in that, clicking on another, and keep click, without really getting anywhere. So I think that if we're, as brands, going to look at the IoT and figure out what partnerships we need to take advantage of this and really create an ecosystem around the brand itself, that we also have to create some form of transparency with the consumer where it's not this 10-page privacy policy. It's something that's very easy to understand. Somebody can also map that out for, okay, where you can have a almost visualization of where that data is, how it's being connected, who else has, access, and what the value is in terms of equal exchange.
It's all about value. All right, next up. Should brands have more than just a privacy policy when receiving data from Internet of Things devices in the home? Is there more than a privacy policy that should happen?
And we have time for just one more answer. If
One more answer.
If anybody has an opinion on this, let me know.
Yeah.
Start to need a data ethics policy of what you'll use the data for.
On that note,
yeah,
a data ethics policy sounds like a great idea to me.
Agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been really fantastic, hopefully thought-provoking, and I really enjoyed hearing you all share your thoughts with each other. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ian.